Good morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Albany. My name is Dawn Dana and I am the Service Associate today. This morning we welcome to our pulpit a person near and dear to our congregation. The Reverend Dr. Lynn Ashley is a lifelong Unitarian Universalist, and she and her late husband, Lawrence Snyder, were longtime friends of Albany UU. Lynn received her Masters and Doctoral degrees from Andover Newton Theological School. She was ordained in our sanctuary in 2003. Prior to retiring, she served as contract minister to our congregations in Fredonia, the UU congregation of Northern Chautauqua, Barneveld, where she was named Minister Emerita in 2011, and in Glens Falls. Lynn resides in Voorheesville with her beloved senior cat, Puddle of Fur, affectionately known as Puddles. Welcome, Lynn. We begin with these words, the poem No Man is an Island by John Donne, and I am using Donne's original words from the early 17th century. No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as any of thy friends or of thine own were. Any man's death diminishes me because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. Our prelude is You've Got a Friend by Carole King. It will be presented by Al DeSalvo. Please join in the chalice lighting words shown on the screen. Welcoming all free seekers of truth and meaning, we gather to excite the human spirit, to inspire its growth and development, to respond morally and ethically to a troubled world, and to sustain a vital and nurturing religious community. Next, a unison song for which the words will appear on the screen. We'll sing Here We Have Gathered, number 360 in the gray hymnal. It's from the Genevan Psalter with words by Alicia Carpenter. We wanted to note the poignancy of singing this song today when at last we can gather again. As the text says, we who now gather know each other's pain. Kindness can heal us. As we give, we gain. Sing now in friendship this our heart's own song. Let's sing together. Now is the time for our children and youth to go to the religious education groups. Room assignments are the same as they were earlier this year. If you aren't sure where to go, please see the sign in the lobby or ask at the welcome table, also in the lobby. Welcome to our viewers from Facebook who will be joining us now for the service. My name is Dawn Dana and I am the Service Associate. We welcome to our pulpit the Reverend Dr. Lynn Ashley, who is a retired minister and longtime friend of our congregation.
It is so good to see at least parts of so many familiar faces. It's been a long time. Well, in his mid-20s, Frederick Buechner was living and teaching at a private school in New Jersey. In his memoir, The Sacred Journey, which he began writing shortly after his 50th birthday, he recalled an evening when he had gone into Manhattan for dinner with his mother. Following are his words. Just as we were about to sit down to eat, the telephone rang, and it was from me. It was a friend, and he had not spoken more than a word or two when his voice broke, and I realized to my horror that he was weeping. His mother and father and a pregnant sister had been in an automobile accident on the West Coast, and it was uncertain whether any of them would live. He was at the airport waiting for a flight to take him to them. Could I come, he asked, and wait with him till the plane left? He goes on. There are many people in this world, I suspect they are in the majority, who in face of such a cry for help as that would have seen right away that, humanly speaking, there was no alternative but to say that they would be at the airport as soon as a taxi would take them. My instinct, on the other hand, was to be nothing so much as afraid. I was afraid of my friend's fear and of his tears. I was afraid of his faith that I would somehow be a comfort and help to him, and afraid that I was not friend enough to be able to be. My fear dated perhaps from a morning of my childhood when I opened the door of my bedroom on a tragic and terrifying world that I had no resources to deal with. His father had committed suicide that morning of his childhood. He goes on, I was afraid of opening the door into my friend's pain or anybody's pain, including his own. So although I knew as well as anybody that I had no choice but to say that I would come, what I said instead, heaven help me, was that I would come if I possibly could. And would he phone me back in 10 minutes? During those few minutes, I resolved that as soon as he called, I would tell him I would come immediately. Then, as the final absurdity, when he did call, he said he had gotten hold of himself and there was really no longer any need for me to come at all. And the consequence was that I did not go. Excuse me. My mother's apartment by candlelight was haven and home and shelter from everything in the world that seemed dangerous and a threat to my peace. And my friend's broken voice on the phone was a voice calling me out into that dangerous world, not simply for his sake, as I suddenly saw it, but also for my sake. The shattering revelation of that moment was that true peace is not to be had in retreat, but only in the thick of the battle, and often the battle within. To journey for the sake of saving our own lives is little by little to cease to live in any sense that really matters, even to ourselves, because it is only by journeying for the world's sake, even when the world bores and sickens and scares you half to death, that little by little we start to come alive. By grace, I glimpsed that road and saw that it is the only road worth traveling. To move into a time of silent meditation, I offer these words from Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wild drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. Let us be together in silent meditation. Just got a haircut and I'm not used to this. In the years since I began parish ministry, on occasion, I have had variations of the same dream. The dream usually takes place in the Unitarian Church of Barneveld, where I served for several years. Some among you have attended the annual Father's Day pilgrimage to Barneveld, so you know the church. It's the oldest Unitarian church west of the Hudson and is picture book New England. In my dream, if you were a congregant, you would pass through the narrow foyer into a sparklingly brilliant, sunlit sanctuary. Tall, round-arched windows, not unlike those in the old sanctuary here, flank the walls. Pewter candle sconces occupy the spaces between. At the front of the church, a piano stands to the left of the pulpit, the choir loft to the right. The pulpit is surrounded by a paneled wooden wall about 7 feet high and 10 feet wide, which looms 6 steps above the congregation. In my dream, to a congregant arriving for the Sunday service, the pulpit would appear to be empty. That's because, rather than standing behind the pulpit making last-minute preparations, I am huddled behind its wall in a state of sheer panic. I have arrived for the service and have absolutely no idea what it will be about. With pounding heart and addled brain, I search madly through the hymnal. Nothing inspires, nothing registers. Words are simply agglomerations of letters on blurry pages. I hear people arriving. I catch my breath, peek over the pulpit wall and see the church is full. The prelude begins, and still I am in hiding, in despair, still flipping through pages of the hymnal, still trying to find some words of welcome, still telling myself to breathe, and still nothing comes. When the music stops, mumbling, grumbling, and questioning voices rise from the sanctuary floor. But then, before long, a quiet descends. Finally, I stand, ashamed, to face the congregation. No one is there. Everyone has left the church. I am alone, humiliated, an imposter found out. How would I ever be able to face the congregation again? Recently, I had a variation of that dream. The beginning was the same. The anxiety, the fear, the sense of shame, anticipatory public humiliation. This time, though, there was a different ending. Instead of staying behind the pulpit, hidden before the service began, I stood up, looked around the room, and acknowledged that I had come totally unprepared and unknowing. I need your help, I said. And then I asked, what do you need to hear when you came to this morning's service? Answers came from the imagined individuals in the congregation of my dream. And those of us who think about dreams know it's all about me. Answers came from those individuals that I am heard, that I am loved, that I am not alone, that I am okay, as Mr. Rogers said, just the way you are, that I can make a difference here and in the world. In that dream, together, we created a service. We laughed, we sang, we shared our stories. We stood together in holy silence. We held each other's hands and offered our prayers for each other, for the day, and for days to come. The community of my dream came together in the spirit of love to create that service. I awoke from that dream not feeling the old familiar anxiety, but elated and filled with a sense of gratitude, relief, and release. That dream was about way more than performance anxiety. It contradicted a long-held message that had been passed through generations of my family, that I can, that I must, by God, do it myself. It affirmed another message so easily suppressed, that I am not alone, that others love and care for me, and will be there when I most need their support. It served as a reminder that it is okay to ask for help and to accept help when it is offered. That dream was informed by, it was the result, I strongly believe, of expressions of love and compassion I received following my husband Larry's death last summer, during a time for which I was totally unprepared and unknowing. What made all the difference was the presence of beloveds and messages from family members, friends, some of you here, and colleagues, mine and his. Simply hearing familiar voices and sharing stories, reading sympathetic words, appreciating the presence of so many who have listened for so long, sitting quietly in tears with a friend at her kitchen table as she held my hand, and oh, so much more. It was because of those messages and the presence of so many that my recent dream emerged. And that dream called to mind a simple phrase: we need one another. We need one another. Will you please join me in reading responsively George Odell's affirmation, which is printed in your order of service and will shortly be up on the screen for those in Zoom land. I'll begin. Yours are the words in italics. We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted. We need one another when we are in despair, in temptation, and need to be recalled to our best selves again. We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone. We need one another in the hour of our success, when we look for someone to share our triumphs. We need one another in the hour of need, when the encouragement we might endure is significant. We need one another when we come to die, and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey. All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us. Thank you. Moments ago, I spoke of how much it meant to me that so many people reached out and were there following Larry's death, and of how, through a dream that followed, a foundational life message had been transformed. It has been my privilege to speak with some of you who are members of this congregation who have lost loved ones throughout the years. You told me how important was the support you received from the people of this congregation, members as well as staff. These are some of the words that were shared, of the total presence of others, both before and after the death of my beloved, of how you might never have imagined the outpouring of love, the caring beyond any expectation. You used words like incredible, unbelievable, beautiful, responsive. Love and compassion, it seems to me, underlie the response shared, and so valued by those with whom I have had the privilege to speak. How much your presence in their lives made such a difference. Without your expressions of love, and compassion that seem almost to be built into who we are as UUs at times like these. The experiences of personal loss may have been so much greater. Love and compassion. These two words appear in 3 statements created and adopted by members of this congregation. They are in your statements of mission, vision, and covenant. The phrase, beloved community, is also there. Love and compassion, beloved community. Considered to be at the heart of healthy congregations, statements of mission, vision, and covenant are unique to each of the congregations that does the hard work of adopting them. They answer respectively the questions, why are we here? Where are we going? And who are we? Our mission statements answer the question, the why question. They describe what we do, what we aim to accomplish in the best sense here and in the larger community. Our vision statements answer, where are we going? They describe what we aspire to be as a congregation and in relationship with the larger communities to which we belong. Our congregational covenants answer the question, who are we? They give expression to our shared values, and given those values, how we in the congregation will engage with each other. They describe what promises we make concerning our behavior, so that especially when differences arise, as inevitably they will, we will remain committed to each other, this congregation, and this faith. The concept of covenant is foundational to our faith, and its roots are deep. The Reverend Alice Blair Wesley delivered a series of lectures at Harvard in the year 2000. They were later collected in her book, Our Covenant, The Lay and Liberal Doctrine of the Church, the Spirit and the Promise. In her book, she asserts that the making of covenant and the making and keeping of a free church are deeply connected. Going back hundreds of years, she writes, the spirit of love is at the foundation of the faith that would become known as Unitarian Universalism. Further, she asserts, to understand in any depth our liberal free church tradition, or to make much sense of deeply rooted everyday realities of Unitarian Universalist churches now, today, you must understand in your bones the historical importance of the spirit of love manifest in some of the earliest colonial doctrines of this faith. So you might ask, why so much about covenant here now? Our covenants describe who we are and how we will be with one another. The spirit of love, which Reverend Wesley asserts correctly, I believe, is integral to our culture. That spirit is simply an aspect of who we are, manifest particularly in the intimacy of all our rites of passage. From promises made in dedications of our children to the farewells of our memorial services, the spirit of love is palpable in this community. In my experience, however, when the day-to-day and deeper work of congregations must be addressed, it is harder, and I quote from your covenant now as an example, it is harder when it's the day-to-day and deeper work in the congregation, it is harder to celebrate the diversity of our identities and experiences, to honor the strength of the collective and the uniqueness of the individual, and to be willing to support and challenge each other. So I would ask, when you engage in those difficult conversations, how does the covenant to which you have assented inform you? Are you ever mindful of the spirit of love that is in our UU congregational bones? Is your participation in those conversations informed by the vision you share with others of the future of this congregation? Whether in one-to-one or in congregational conversation, do you keep in mind your shared goal of building beloved community? I began my reflection by telling you about some dreams I have had, dreams that took place in one of our historic churches, of how expressions of love and compassion of others imagined in that dream contributed to a transformation of a life message. I conclude with this dream, that we Unitarian Universalists in our congregations and throughout the denomination will find ways to be in deep, difficult conversations that we may live into the world we dream about, the world of beloved community. We need one another to make that happen. So may it be.
An important way we celebrate life each Sunday is by an opportunity to practice generosity. Members and friends support our congregation with an annual pledge paid throughout the year. Another way to support the good work of this congregation is by making a generous contribution as we pass the plate, or via one of the options shown on this next slide. If you are joining us virtually, you can click on the tiny URL link in the chat window to contribute, or you can send a text to the number shown on the screen. The examples on the slide show how to label your text, indicate the amount and the purpose or intent of your gift. Today is also Focus Food Pantry Sunday. This slide shows how to label your online donation for Focus. Here in Community Hall, you can use the Focus donation envelope, which the ushers can provide if you need one. We must now say goodbye to our Facebook friends. Consider joining us on Zoom next time, or visit us at 405 Washington Avenue, Albany. You can find more information at albanyuu.org. Our offertory music is Bridge Over Troubled Water by Paul Simon. It will be performed by Al DeSalvo. We enjoy welcoming guests and visitors to our service. If you'd like to tell us who you are and where you're from, those here in Community Hall should stand or raise your hand. The usher will bring you a microphone so that everyone can hear you. Those joining us on Zoom can click on the raise hand symbol, which you'll find either in the participant window or in the reactions button on your Zoom toolbar. Our technician will invite you to unmute and introduce yourself. You may also, or instead, click on the visitor link you'll find now. As I select a stone on behalf of those joys and sorrows that are left unspoken, and also for the horrors that are happening in the Ukraine, let us hold all that we have heard and felt in our hearts.
We need one another in times of trouble and times of celebration. And so, in our congregations, we share our joys and sorrows, our prayers. In affirmation of the words spoken and unspoken here today, I offer these words from the Reverend Davidson Lohr, who served this congregation as interim minister about 25 years ago. We offer our prayers not to something, but from something to which we must give voice, not to escape from our life, but to focus it, not to relinquish our mind, but to replenish our soul. We pray that we may live with honesty, that we can accept who we are and admit who we are not. We pray that we can live with trust and openness to those people, those expectations, those experiences, and those transforming moments that can save us from narrowness and despair. And we pray on behalf of these hopes with an open heart, an honest soul, and a grateful reverence for the life that has been given to us. Amen. Will you please join me in singing our closing hymn, number 354. Will you please join me in reading the words which appear in your orders of service, words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. These words from Mary L. Cleary. May the peace of flowing water be with us. May the beauty of starry skies be with us. May the warmth of companionship be with us. And may the miracle of this world in its fullness bless us this day and each day of our lives. For we need one another. Go in peace.
Our thanks today go to our service volunteers, musician Al DeSalvo, ushers Kristen Abbas, Don Odell, Kathy Harris, pastoral care associates Annie Lipinski and Eric Bonhausen, service associate myself, Dawn Dana, welcomers Elizabeth Berberian, Barb Manning, greeter Kathy Hodges, office support Tammy Goddard Hathaway, Patience Bichette, technical support Chris Jensen, Chuck Manning, and the flowers were arranged today by Sigrun Newell. They were donated by Jan McCracken, dedicated to remembering her parents, Martha and Fred Schroeder, with perpetual tenderness and gratitude. Jan says, thank you.